Welcome to She Said, She Said. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan. Christine Templin is one part of the sister team who created the startup Purple Patriot. Purple Patriot is an online platform that's designed to increase political engagement by women from both political parties. We'll talk to Christine about her vision, as well as about the unique challenges of creating something that is nonpartisan in a world that has grown increasingly polarized. Christine, we're delighted to have you. So, what is Purple Patriot?
It is a nonpartisan app that is available for the iPhone and for the Android that makes it easy to stay engaged in what's going on in government. We focus on women, and it's really, we sort of came to the idea with the mindset that people are busy, and it's really difficult to stay up to date. There's a lot of information. I mean, this is an information age, and you're just getting barraged. So we have taken our platform and we've made it issue-centric, so you can find out quickly information about issues. And we also have this concept of a to-do list that makes it, so you feel like you have an accomplishment. And, it's small bits of information. It is a marriage of technology and politics. And what we really believe is sort of the next evolution of the political landscape, or politics 3.0.
Where did this idea come from? Why was this important for you to do this?
Actually, my sister and I founded the company, so we are co-founders. She came to it when she was trying to find out about GMO labeling and why we couldn't get it passed. And she was having difficulty just getting general information about it, getting in touch with her Congress people to find out, how do we move this forward? It was sort of the aha moment is why is it so difficult to get a simple, what we thought was a relatively simple thing of, just general labeling on food, around GMO modification. Why was this so difficult? Mm-hmm. And that was sort of her aha moment. And we talked about that. And for me, it was really when I was talking with the younger people about voting and the apathy that they had around getting involved. My vote doesn't count. It's too difficult to stay involved. I have no interest in government or politics. And for me, I've voted since I was 18 in every election and primary that I could vote in. So that was a very disturbing trend. And then we started to look at how are younger people engaging? How are women engaging? In this, in a world where the biggest limitation we have is time, or the way that we're engaging, right? For the younger people, it's Facebook, Instagram, it's text messaging. It is not phone calls and door knocking and even traditional TV, right? So it's a different way. So what we wanted to do was get people engaged. We are technologists. I've done software engineering for over 25 years now, and my sister's on the product side. Mm-hmm. So we're this is what we can do to sort of help move this forward. So we went about building this app.
So the platform is aimed at women.
Correct.
As opposed to people more broadly.
Yes.
Why women? What is it unique about women and women's political engagement that makes you want to focus on this particular segment as opposed to just focusing on everyone?
Yeah. And as we like to say, we're focused on women today. And if it changes that we have parity in government and we have more involvement of women in general, then, obviously it's not limited to, but that's who we focus on. When you look at the world or the political landscape or the engagement today, it's really being driven by women, right? So all of the new organizations, all of the engagement, really the leaders that are standing up are young and older women, right? So that's who's really driving the engagement and sort of getting people active in government today. So that's one reason. They also control 80 to 85 cents of every dollar that's spent in the U.S. So there's a lot of, ability to influence, right? Not only from a government perspective, but also from a buying power, from the purse perspectives. And then lastly, we're women. I think you can build a product best if you're wearing the shoes and that's the life you're leading. So,
Does it change the content and the construct of the product in that you're focused on women?
Yes, I believe it does. But, everything affects women, but where they really are focused, right? Education, healthcare, student loans for younger women, right? Like, what does that, if you think about that and how that impacts their lives for the next 10 or 15 or 20 years when they come out of school with so much debt, right? Mm-hmm. Those type of things. And then we focus a lot around just getting the message around women candidates, mm-hmm. or what women are doing in various regions or areas to stay involved. So yes.
How has the idea been received by the political parties and by other groups that are engaged in this space to some degree? Everybody's doing something a little different than what you're doing, but how have they embraced this idea or not?
Yeah, so I laughed a little because I think, again, we both of us will admittedly say, like, we have not been in the political field. That's not what we do, right? So we are just your everyday women kind of coming forward and trying to solve a problem. Talking to people on the political side has been challenging. That really hasn't been something that they have embraced. We do it our way, right? And our way is working. So why would we want to change? And then I will literally sit there and say, okay, how are you reaching millennials? How are you thinking about the next 10, 20 years? Like, how are you getting women into the pipeline?
Yeah.
Especially like more established organizations.
And is this true of the political parties or the organizations around them? Or
it's both. It's both, right? I think that the political parties are certainly have their way. And again, I think it's just like, hey, we knock on doors. We make phone calls. Now they're texting, right? I mean, we've all received the texts. Aren't they great? I'm already blocking them on my phone. But yeah, so
not
it's
exactly
actually, it has like really, and that was like really surprising to me. Because for me, again, like coming from a technology background, I'm like, this just makes sense to me. Like, I can see this being, how things move forward in 10, 20 years. Like, millennials don't answer their phone. They don't answer the door, right? And your text messaging strategy is going to be obsolete after probably this election, if not the next one, because people will just be done with it. It's surprising, actually, that it hasn't been as embraced. It's really some of the, when we go and we talk to younger people, they get it, right? It's like, oh, this makes sense to me. This is so easy. This is something that I would use every day. Even like we did a pilot with a group down in Texas of high school girls, and they just loved the product. And it was just like, this is the future for us and how we will stay engaged. So
yeah, so interesting. So tell me a bit about, this is a nonpartisan platform. You most likely have a particular political point of view, just as I do, as most of us do. So how do you go about guarding against the creep in a direction and not really realizing that you're going there, if that makes sense? How do you guard against partisan content and what can be kind of dog whistle issues for the other party?
Yeah. So how we guard against that is really just trying to deliver facts. If we talk about a specific issue, it is, really trying to focus it around the facts. Like, here's what it costs us. Here's how many people are impacted. Here's what it means. Just general, like, what is CHIPS? What does that mean? How many people, are enrolled in it? What does it cost? Those type of just fact-based information. Again, yes, I have my own beliefs, and I'm not trying to influence. I just, what we're trying to do is give people a place where they can go and get as unbiased information as possible. Everything has a little bit of bias, right? Even when you try and just serve up general facts, you can certainly use data either way. But at least if you're making a decision, it's based on facts and not just the rhetoric or that you're hearing, in the general news. We also, if we're sourcing anything from news media, we look for very unbiased or center organizations. So, we won't use the New York Times or Fox News, right? Like, we will be very focused around Reuters and some of the others that are definitely much more central. And, I always caveat and say sometimes we have to go in certain places because they're the only people reporting. But we try and say, but we always cite the source. So if it's, where it's coming from, so you can at least understand if there is bias there.
And you, as I understand it, you also have advisors from both political parties who
That
are
is correct.
part of your advisory board and infrastructure. And what role do they play in terms of helping to provide that balance?
We take it upon ourselves to be very focused on making sure that we're nonpartisan, but it also gives us exposure in both on both sides. So we're not just seeing the issues from let's use the Me Too. Like, we're not just seeing that, right? We're also seeing the other side of the coin and being able to report on both and being aware of it. So that's really how they've helped out: exposure and just knowledge to ensure that we're using multiple sources and we know sort of what's going on both sides. Give information fairly.
Okay. So let's pivot a bit and talk about, again, a little bit more about how this came to be.
Yeah.
You are in business with your sister.
Yes.
Family enterprises can be interesting.
Yeah.
How does that work? What different strengths and leadership styles do each of you bring to the table?
No. Isn't it like one of the business startup one-on-one, like, first tool is like, think about who your co-founders are, right?
And don't go into business with family.
Right, and don't go to business with family. Which is interesting. I think that, as I said, she's had over 20 years of product experience, and she's worked for a lot of startups and has built and monetized a lot of products. So she brings that strength. And I'm from the technology side, so I've done everything, in terms of in building a product from the technology, scaling, et cetera. But she is definitely more the big idea person, and I'm the executor. So she has a tendency to be very big in scope, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and I'm the one who will sort of pull her in and be like, no, we're executing on point 1 and point 2, and that's it. And these are great ideas, and we can certainly look at them in the future, but not today. So she definitely brings that. I bring more of the execution and focus. What is interesting, yes, never go into business with your family. I would love to understand why that is the mantra. I mean, I have 2 sisters. We're very close. We have a very, strong bond in our family. So for me, this was like very natural to do this together. What is fun? I mean, it's fun, right? This whole thing is fun. What I love about it is, like, we know each other so well. We're a loud family. My family's German. You won an argument in our house by talking louder than anyone else at the table. So, we have very lively discussions, as we like to say them. But there's no area that we can't talk about, right? Or we can't discuss, or I can't say, like, hey, that's a crazy idea and we're not doing that, right? And she may get a little bit offended, but it's always, the comeback and, okay, you're right, we need to focus on this. So I think we can have very open dialogue and discussions that maybe you wouldn't have with another person that you didn't know as well. And also, it's not going to break our relationship. So there's no point where we're going to just someone's going to get angry and walk away and be like, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm going to take my toys and go play somewhere else, right? It's interesting, but I think those are some of the pluses, right? Yeah, the minuses are, like, you're always, it's always about business. And I always feel like, and my sister's hysterical, again, just love her to death, but she will literally come up, she'll, like, go on a bike ride, and then she'll come back, and then she'll, like, ping me and be like, did you finish X, Y, and Z yet? And when are you getting it to me? And I'll be like, I don't work on your schedule. Like, I've got this list of things that I'm going to do, and you will have it by the end of the day, kind of thing. So, but it's fun, right? So, yeah.
How do you work through, when you have major differences of opinion, how do you work through those and keep it professional so that you don't, I think that one of the reasons why folks sort of avoid having family in the workplace is that sometimes you might have a tendency to bring all your baggage from when you were a kid into the workplace. Yeah. And how do you avoid that? How do you sort of set a baseline for, here's how we're going to resolve conflicts?
I don't know if you ever avoid that. Right. I think there's definitely bringing some past things in, or at least ways that you have that you resolve or you have your discussion. So I don't know if I don't know if you resolve that as much as it's there and you can work around it. We have had large differences, and they're really they have been good discussions, right? We talked a lot about sort of what does our monetization strategy look like, and some people in space do a subscription model, and I'm very much against that myself because I believe it limits who you can reach, because certain people don't have.
So this is free. This
is a free app.
Platform.
Yes, because certain people don't have disposable income to be able to do this, to spend on something like this. And, we had long discussion around that, but it was a point that I wasn't willing to move on. And we were able to sort of work through that and get to the point where it was like, okay, we have all these other things, and we certainly, that's our strategy for going forward in the next 12 to 24 months. And then, we can reevaluate. But yeah.
So given that this is a free platform, what are you doing to raise money?
We are bootstrapped today, so we're self-funded, and we are going out for our seed and angel investing. And in terms of sort of our monetization strategy, how we look at it is kind of twofold. We look at it from women candidates and advertisements, or the ability to advertisement is a strong term, right? But the ability to get your message out on our platform as a woman candidate. So that's really because we have a really unique set of users, right? We focus on middle school to mommy bloggers. So we get the women into the young women into the pipeline as they're starting their careers, and then go forward. So it's twofold. It's candidates, and then it's also strategic partnerships with brands. Going back to that concept of voting with your purse.
Do you have challenges potentially in terms of maintaining your political neutrality, if you will, if you don't have enough women advertising from both sides of the political aisle? And how will you deal with that, or how do you deal with that?
How we've sort of approached that is if it's not something that we're comfortable we can get both sides, then we won't do it. So it's really, it's even on the brand side, like how we think about the being able to say it's both. This is a big challenge around associations, and why we're not sort of going into that space at all is because you can get very polarized quickly, right? So I think that brands have a much more tendency to be neutral, right, in terms of at least sort of how they're approaching their marketer, sort of, or they don't have any political stance on certain things, right? And candidates as well, but obviously they are, but there's definitely, the ability to get both sides.
Interesting. So. Very interesting. So would this be for this particular election cycle or the next election cycle?
So we're starting for the November election.
So this cycle.
Yes, but really focused on 2020. So.
Given the fact that this is a startup,
yes,
what advice do you have for other would-be entrepreneurs? I mean, you had a background in technology and in both you and your sister both. What advice do you have for others who may have an idea and they don't know where to start?
Research. Research your idea. Do it. I have another 10 startups that I have sort of in the back of my mind when we get this one to where it needs to be. But I think it's really, if you believe in something, do it, right? But of course, like, be educated, know your market, research it. I'm lucky in that I have a really strong network around technology and just bringing in, the ability to try and bring funders to the table and those type of things. But where we don't have our expertise is some of the political side. And that's where we've looked to our advisory board and some of the other experts that, we've talked to people, see if there's a fit. But really, it's do it, right? I think we can all sit back and sort of, we all have these great ideas, but it's really even trying is worth something, right? I mean, so many startups fail, and the likelihood of success is very minimal, right? It's so small, but it's fun. And, when my sister and I talk about sort of like, some days it's like, why do we do this? This is so hard, right? And it's not fun today. Like we have to do all these things that we don't like to do. But just who the amazing women we've met, the amazing people that we've had the opportunity to meet and talk to, the lessons learned, the things that you thought would work, like that people just don't understand or aren't in the same place with you. That's really been just a huge learning experience. And even if we have to, in a year or two walk away from this, there's just so much that you take away from from this type of experience. So
what's the most significant thing you've learned?
Oh, everything, literally. We've had to sort of pivot our strategy. When we started, we thought we really focused on sort of partnering with associations because we thought that would be
trade associations.
Any of those ones that have a really big following that don't really have tools or modern ways that they engage their members, right? And I was like, oh, this would be very simple, very easy. A lot of nonprofits. Mm-hmm. Well, nonprofits don't have any money. Maybe less forward looking than I would have thought, right? I won't say I'm not going to paint all of them because certainly, some of the younger ones are definitely understand.
The resource limitation is a factor.
Yeah, exactly. So just starting there was the wrong step for us. We really needed to focus more grassroots. That's where we're really getting a lot of our users, a lot of the excitement around the product is, our ambassador program, which is, we have right now 35 ambassadors around the country who, for the most part, are young women that are out in their communities talking about the product, getting people active in government if they aren't already. Again, that was a big kind of like aha moment for us. So,
and how do you recruit the ambassadors? Where do you find them?
You can go to our website and sign up. We do a little bit of everything. We're at your farmers markets. We're at, we went to the county fair. We've had recommendations. We've met people at trade shows. We've done some podcasts and some blogs and some things like that. And we've had people sign up to be ambassadors through that. So
fantastic. Yeah. So your professional background, we've talked about the fact that you have been in the Valley for a number of years.
Yes.
What were you doing before this specifically?
So I just finished 8 years at Twitter. It's really actually a good foundational learning experience for me because when I started, Twitter was a 100-person startup, so a very, very small company, and grew to over 4,000, I think there are around 4,000 employees now. Obviously very different, right? I was, in engineering there, built a lot of teams, solved a lot of problems, and went through a lot of challenges over the years. So that really gave me a good foundational kind of hands-on approach to being able to really drive the technology platform for this company. So.
Mm-hmm. Talk about how you create the corporate culture that you want to work in. You've had a lot of experience with other organizations. Yeah. How do you get it right, and how do you and your sister think about the corporate culture of Purple Patriot?
When we think about Purple Patriot, we really think about, can we walk the walk and not just talk the talk? So we are all about women empowerment. 25 years in technology, we can go through all the stories like of how many times, I was the only women leader in the room at the table. I've had teams that have been mostly men. And really thinking about that when we put together our team and engaging and how we engage. We're small. We're a 7-person company right now, which is exciting, when you start out with 2. So it's exciting. But we really look to ensure that we're finding the best candidate. And we're very much about understanding the need for flexible work schedules, right? Most of our team is remote. So it's when they can do things. We have coding that happens at all hours. We have, a woman who supports us, who's part of our team, who's in Las Vegas, that, she takes her daughter to school in the morning, and when she's, and we have calls with her at 10 a.m. because that's when she has time. So understanding and being supportive of women and what they bring to the table as part of the workforce. Some takeaways I've had just are around transparency, very open about where we are as a company, what we're doing, what we're focused on, if we need to scale anything back because we have to shift our funds somewhere else, while we're going through this. Transparency, really trying to be a learning culture, right? I think that's super important. Most people think about failure as a bad thing. I think failure is a good thing, right? That's how we learn. That's how we actually improve and go forward. And looking at it as a learning culture, like I gave that one example, right? That was a huge pivot for us. And we wasted probably 6 months on sort of that and moving forward. But, now we're really focused and we have a really good understanding of how we grow the product, where we grow the product, and just learning from those things and being able to have those, looking in the mirror and saying, hey, this is, we didn't do this right. We need to be better. So.
What's your personal process for dealing with setback? Having a 6-month setback, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Whether you characterize it as a failure or whether you call it a setback. Setback's kind of a pretty word for failure, right?
Yes.
What's your process for dealing with that? How do you bounce back?
That's a good question. It's hard, right? I mean, you definitely have the moments where you're like, why did I ever think I could do this? Why am I doing this, right? This is frustrating. Nobody gets it. I'm the only, we're the only ones who get it. It's depressing. For me, I think I've had a lot of failure, at various points in my career. And I think I've been able to learn from it and move forward. I definitely am someone who is, I fight through things. I definitely, I'm not going to let something defeat me. If I can't do it one way, I'm going to do it another way. But that's like one of the times where like working with my sister is such a positive, right? It's because we can sort of commiserate together and cry, and I'm a big wine drinker, so a glass or two of wine definitely helps. But it is, it's the kind of, it's the, okay, we're going to recognize we did this. We're going to take our hour, and then we're going to move forward.
Where does the drive to keep going come from? So you just said something interesting, and this comes up a lot on this podcast. Yeah. What enables you to put one foot in front of the other? You've been knocked on your can and you're defeated, and yet you get back up and you put one foot in front of the other and you keep going. What is it that makes you get up and keep going?
Family. It's definitely how we were raised. We had a very, very strong mother who, taught us, again, 3 girls, right? So taught us women can do anything. Don't listen to anyone. You can be whatever you want. She definitely helped kind of form that. But it also was my dad, right? So again, father of 3 girls, he is our biggest advocate. Really receptive and really supportive. Like when you came to him with a problem, just, anything, he was like really supportive. And I think, unfortunately, my mother passed away when we were young. I was like 26, and then my other sisters were younger. So that even brought us closer together, and we draw a lot of strength from one another. When you know that your family is always going to be there for you no matter what you do. If you mess up, if you fail, if you decide to travel the world and not work, then they'll still be there to support you. That's a big, that makes a big difference, that no matter what, you're successful with them. So
how do you define success? Not just for the company, but for you personally?
No. So for me personally, I am a big advocate of women in general. So there's a lot of people that think about sort of like, what is your mission in life, or what is your calling, right? And I don't know if I have a calling, but how I just define for success for me is, am I giving back? Are people, can I look, when you look around and you see people that have worked for you, or you've coached, or you've been, a mentor to, or you've supported in a nonprofit, and you see them be successful, that to me is how I define success. Am I contributing to the world? Even if you don't see results, but you know that there is a program out there that can help women, or young girls, give them the ability to learn to code, or give them the ability to, a safe place they can go to after school. And I've helped that in whatever way, then that for me is success. And I think that with our platform, we can help, get women engaged, can, really help to formulate the government and the world that they want to see, right? And be active and be collaborative, and we're all at the table talking to one another, because that's what women do, right? We're moving things forward that way. So that's how I define success.
So, Christine, how can other groups get involved? They listen to this podcast and they're very intrigued by the idea. How can they get involved with you?
You can go to our website, purplepatriot.com, and there's information on either signing up to be an ambassador. You can go, as I said, the app is readily available. Please go download it today. If there's any feedback, we'd love to hear it. We're looking for partnerships, and we're looking for additional ways to get the word out. So those are the best ways to get involved. Obviously, even without our platform, make sure that you're getting involved in your communities, all those things that we're doing anyways, but just making sure you're doing that. I like to always remind people, hey, when you go out to vote, take someone with you, right? And obviously in November, no matter what, who, if you're independent, Republican, Democrat, you don't, none of the above, all of the above, try and take someone to the polls, because I think it's so critical that we as women get out there and represent the almost 51% of the population that we are. So,
yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So we ask each of our guests for a single piece of advice or life hack, either something that you live by, maybe it could be a mantra, or maybe it's a piece of advice or life hack that you readily share with others on your team and elsewhere. What would be yours?
I will share this one. I think it's very relevant. We always say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So do all those things that you need to do for a marathon, right? Take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others, and you can't do the things you need to do. Try and stay focused, and try and really understand that this is a again, it's a long haul, it's a journey, and it's not something that's going to be completed in a day. So,
Christine, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It is my pleasure as well, and thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you all for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Christine and Purple Patriot, you can visit our website at www.shesaidshesaidpodcast.com. There we'll include links to the Purple Patriot website, as well as some other information and some photographs from today's visit. And if you're enjoying She Said, She Said, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. As always, thanks for listening.